Well, hello everyone. Welcome to God's Grace on Thee and Angel Wallace Productions. Today we have another reading from the Phoenix Journals. This one is from the 4winds10.com. I always provide you links and I put them down in the description box. So if you're ever looking for my address or if you're looking for the book names that I have for purchasing, or if you're looking for the links to a particular piece of information that I had provided for you, those links are always in the description box, okay? So today we're going to start on chapter 2, and we're going to continue on, and this is a recording by Hatton. Now, Hatton is the commander of the Space Force, basically. His communicative skills are a little bit different than when we start to listen to Jesus speak. So just keep that in mind. I know that there are some people that tell me, well, it's a little hard to keep all of the characters, and remember who they are. But the three main ones that you need to know is Aton, who is God. And then there is Isu Emmanuel Jesus Sananda, who is Jesus. And then their Commander Hatton here, who is an assistant to, and he's from the Space Brothers, basically. And there's many that are already here that walk around and among us. Those three, and never forget your Creator, of course, He's the soul, the essence that no one will ever see. So let's get started. I'm kind of interested. It's getting more interesting as we're going along. So let's continue. Chapter 2, Recording 1, Hatton. Tuesday, December the 12th, 1989, 8 o'clock a.m., Year 3, Day 118. Aho, Dharma, Hatton present and in service to truth regarding our presence and your plight. Record straightening. I apologize to you, Dharma, for you work long hours to produce the journals, and it is most difficult to interrupt your work and receiving to change topics. It is not so difficult for you simply receive that which is poured forth, but it is most confusing for those ones in placing into order the writings to present to the readers. It has become evident that we must have two simultaneously running documents, one dealing with the new subject matter, i.e., first there must be ashes, then the phoenix rises. Secondly, a running news document to respond to the myriad of questions flowing back unto us, dealing with everything from monetary systems to exactly where did Master Isu Jesus make his transition. There will simply have to be interruptions to respond, and the responses should be kept separate and frequently compiled and made available. I will need use of much of the good clear information is already coming forth on your placement and discount that which is false and drivel. This will, however, be a method for certain ones who are undecided about me and our space brotherhood to come into confirmation of truth of that which we bring forth in the journals. Thank you for the opportunity of this introduction. The Secret Government by Milton William Cooper. Now, this seems to be creating a considerable rift and separation among ones who find Mr. Cooper's work total integrity. I, too, find most of Mr. Cooper's work total integrity on his part. There is a great difference in presenting truth and presenting a lie foisted off on you ones in the name of research. I honor Mr. Cooper. I caution one, Neil Armstrong, a wondrous astronaut, that he be most cautious in that which he presents unto the public. Now, Mr. Cooper threatened a lawsuit to the original publishers of Spacegate, a Phoenix journal, for utilizing his material. Nay, we did not use his material, although most of the research portion is exceptionally good. There are errors, however, perpetrated not by him necessarily, just errors, and his conclusions that you will be enslaved by little gray men from space school is totally without merit and absurd, beyond my ability to give credit in any manner. I do respect him greatly for taking on the slings and arrows, but for those errors which perpetrate the desired lie, he would be quite physically dead at the hands of the police crew. The reference is President Eisenhower met with the aliens, and formal treaty between the alien nation and the United States of America was signed. We then received our first alien ambassador from outer space. His name and title was His Omnipotent Highness Krill, pronounced K-R-I-L-L, Krill. In the American tradition of disdain for royal titles, he was secretly called Original Hostage Krill. You should know that the alien flag is known as the trilateral insignia. It is displayed on their craft and worn on their uniforms. And both of these landings and the second meeting were filmed. The films exist today. Alien Ambassador, His Omnipotent Highness Krill, pronounced Krill and Original Hostage Krill, is a complete fabrication. So be it. And I further request that the ones who birthed Mr. Krill let the information leak to someone who can verify this to our publisher, please. Thank you. Never does the real thing use such stupid labels. However, be most kind to ones who present what they believe is good information and research material, for their intention is good. I would further check out the Jason Society and the Jason Scholars as being recruitment authority for members of Skull and Bones and or the Scrolling Key, societies of Harvard and Yale. Now, this secret society still remains so secret that it must be totally obscure for the most part. Do you see, however, that simply by having a few points of incorrect information and entirely wrong conclusions can be drawn from a thesis? Original authors put this type of information forward to see who is taking their information. However, in these instances, the information cannot be hoarded because man must come unto truth. I further suggest that you not spend too much time trying to catch Haton or Ashtar because our resource noses are well trained. So be it. Further, if a man meets me and introduces himself as John Doe or Jesus, I will henceforth call him John or Jesus. I will know the difference. It is simply none of my business what foolish games you Earthians wish to play. When you are ready to correct the information to truth, then I shall be most pleased to accept that also. And ones bringing forth incorrect and deliberate lies unto the public regarding these most life and death matters are considered to be working all by blindly in the service of the evil coalition. I honor the original authors who place distractors in their work if it is not presented as nonfiction and for the betterment of the brotherhood of man. Usually it is presented as a whim because the original authors did not recognize the importance of total truth in the original writings. This does not mean that as I try to give you resources to confirm truth, that you will not also find these repetitions projected in these journals. We are efforting at moving beyond the trust me on faith to believe me and check it for yourself. Now, I request that this information be funneled immediately through Gabrielle to Mr. Cooper, that he can possibly revise his conclusions, for he has great service to give unto his brothers, for his intent is pure, and we would be most pleased to work with him personally. Enough of that. I believe I have probably made my point quite clearly and pointedly. I hope that I have done so without antagonism, for we have no more time for antagonism. If you believe the lie, you will project the lie, no more and no less. So be it. And God sent blessings upon those who see, recognize, and alter their words and path into truth, for theirs is the kingdom of the heavens. Project Eden Return. Another point which I would like to clear up at this writing is the misconception that spacecraft detonated an atomic bomb over Tunguska, Russia at 7:17 a.m. on the 30th of June of 1908. Big B word. That was another of your man-made crackpot ideas gone crazy. The plot was intentional. The execution of the madman scheme backfired and was most stupid indeed. Oh, you think you didn't have the capability of such technology in 1908? Look again. What has been hidden from you for just these past 34 years? Oh yes, you once had the capability right out of Germany in secret venture with Russia. The pole shift. I am going to work backwards so I don't lose your interest by cluttering your mind with facts and historical data, prophecies, etc. As a matter of fact, this document might do very well as a chapter integrated into the current journal under preparation as well as a response document. It is going to absolutely churn with prophecy. True and ethical research proves that pole shift and the Earth's magnetic field reversal does occur. Both events have and do happen to your very own planet at various intervals of time. Now, this ancient secret knowledge has been partially known in the West since at least the time of the Crusades, if not prior to that. Now, the Egyptians and Babylonians had pretty fair partial knowledge taken from Tibet, India. The very name Tibet comes from one of the most ancient names for the sun god, Aton, Tai, and Bet, an H in parenthesis, which means house or home of. Thus, Tibet was the home of the complete original knowledge of not only pole shifts and magnetic field reversals, but of atomic power systems and human psychic enhancement, as well as other knowledge treasures. And why do you think the master you call Jesus spent so much time in Tibet? Oh, you didn't know that little fact? For shame on your education. The Christ would go where the truth of the one God Aton was brought forth for his instructions and awakening after passing into your density and piercing of the veil of forgetfulness, which descends upon each and every earth-birthed human. For their conquest of India and other sources, the British in particular were well aware of this knowledge treasure in Tibet. At the turn of the century, they pushed very hard politically, but to no avail, for an open-door policy in Tibet against the crumbling Manchu rulers of China. The British then launched a military mission into Tibet, headed by Colonel Young Husband. Look it up, Chelas, and captured Lhasa in 1904. By means of cunning, torture, and bribes, they obtained the sought-after knowledge. This argument would have been advanced in the innermost councils of secret societies and power elites, that if nature is going to cause a pole shift anyway at some unknown time, why not cause the shift and reversal at a selected time and be able to select the survivors of their own choosing? So be it. At 7:17 a.m. on the 30th of June of 1908, an atomic bomb of nearly 300 megatons, that would be 2.8 times 10 to the 23rd ergs, was balloon carried and detonated over Tunguska, Russia. And using British data from Tibet, a group of German scientists from the same secret societies which were merged in Germany under Bismarck, had constructed the bomb and launched it. Project Eden Return was stupid in respect to technical precautions to ensure the survival of the selected people, who were not shock padded in restraint units, and the necessary 2 years' food supply had not been stored. Well, it was so stupid in so many ways that I can't even count the ways, so let us pass on. Luckily for you, however, the real stupidity came in that the device was detonated at the wrong time to cause the pole shift. It wouldn't have worked anyway, but it does point up unlimited lengths to which the elite will go to get their way against you, unsuspecting world citizens. Tunguska is in fact the appropriate new geographical location of what you call the North Pole, or the magnetic South Pole. After the coming pole shift, so the target was well deciphered and chosen. The purpose of the blast was supposedly to push in, flatten at Tunguska, and push out the antipole, trans-Earth near Antarctica below South America. The vastly off-center at 96 degrees east land ice mass of Antarctica was to accomplish the pole shift, just as nature will pretty much arrange it eventually. In order to cause the desired pole shift, the bomb should have been detonated between December the 21st and the 30th, around about your sunset. Well, wrong again, for it is not intended that you rearrange those poles, and we have been ordered into your sector to prevent exactly what that sort of devastation. With a pole shift of any planet or star system, you have chaos created in the universal spaces around it. Space Command has been holding you as steady as possible since long before that incident. The Earth's shift will happen exactly when Creator plans it and orders our withdrawal of stabilization. You are already slipping, for even with our massive ability to beam immobilize with every correcting electromagnetic systems, you continue to move. Well, back to the story of stupidity. So due to whatever cause of intervention, the detonation was timed backward for any shift of this type. They simply forgot to correct the data for reversed Earth rotation, sunrise in the east rather than in the west as provided for in the Tibet data. You cannot use the time data used to sink Atlantis to shift the other way. Stealing knowledge is easy. Understanding it is much more difficult. Wisdom is lacking in either instant. Another problem which was quite overlooked in all respects is the geophysical problem of the eastern-western extremes of Tibet itself, where the Himalayas dent northward, pointing directly to Tunguska, will hold back the upward shift of Antarctica. This earth pressure damming effect of the Himalayas was the reason why Tibet was the storehouse of this knowledge in the first place, back in ancient times. In modern times, all of the underground nuclear tests are aimed at weakening these two Himalayan dent areas, thus allowing the needed slippage to the north when the selected time comes due. Now, the recent massive earthquake in the Nepal area, eastern Himalayan dent weak point triggered by the atomic underground tests in Nevada, yes, that's exactly what I said. Nevada, USA is a visible example of that process. And you thought, well, what exactly did you think? The new dawn. Hold your breath, brothers. The new project of insanity for pole shift is called the New Dawn, meaning the return of sunrise to the west. Now, the point is to instantly eliminate all of the world's problems of pollution and overpopulation via a planned pole shift. And not more than 10 to 25 of your highest hidden masters behind layer upon layer of the power elite know of this project. So this time the technical details are very well planned and could be quite workable indeed. The preparations are all set and in place for removing to safety the elite group who have decided they are the ones to be saved. They have a dandy place all prepared at your expense to wait out the high tide. Are you about ready to open your eyes and ears and see and hear? You are about to be tossed overboard, little chelas. Can it work? Oh, yes. If the time is appropriate, it most surely will work. It will not be as they plan it, but it can most surely work. They are not too good at planning such things, and this time a stupid error can blow you to kingdom come again. And you can toss your little home right out of orbit, and at that point, pole shifting will be a most moot point indeed. Well, why didn't someone tell you about this? Where were you, Hatan, when we needed you? Well, how many of you read my work, really listen to me, or do you still seek and search and pound and pray to discount and discredit Hatan? You have been told, most critically and truthfully, right from ones on your place, and you have not paid attention. Such drivel. You have said comes from the devil, and my preacher told me not to listen to any of that evil stuff. In 1908, Tunguska explosion is well documented, and there are several Russian books on the tragedy as well as other information having surfaced finally in our own languages. The young husband military mission to Tibet in 1904 has always been noted with much intrigue. Further, it is quite interesting to further note that Colonel Young husband, on return from Tibet, resigned from the British Army and for the remainder of his life lived in seclusion as a confused mystic. He wrote several books on mysticism. Wouldn't you think something pretty drastic happened to convert a hardened career officer in the British Army into a recluse? Now, you ask, well, will it happen, Hatan? The shift? Yes, by your own hands. No, but you can cause devastation beyond your control that is vastly more catastrophic than a mere little pole shift and magnetic reversal. You see, you are talking of some 13-degree shift, and I'm talking about a complete out of control tumbling out of orbit and into total chaos. You play with toys of which you have no understanding. Right or wrong conclusions. Now, I'm going back to some data as presented by an outstanding editor of a most reputable news publication, ACS. I protect his safety and thank him for his daring efforts at projecting most dangerous material. Now, he has published an article entitled "The End is Near. How about a pole shift in 2007 AD?" And I shall simply quote most of it. As if our world doesn't have enough problems with tracking a stumbling Goliath in the Soviet Union, the skull and bones, elitist influence at home, the Majestic 12, extraterrestrial being report, and so on, we now have another. The possibility of coming catastrophic from natural factors as an ardent following, but a change of mind by one prominent catastrophist suggests that this is the time to present the story to P blank 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 L blank 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 readers. Now, there has been a school of thought for some decades that claims coming global disaster because of a shift in the Earth's poles. North Pole becomes South Pole and vice versa. Now, if this happens, the world will presumably tumble over end for a while. Another version has the North Pole shifting a few hundred miles to Hudson Bay in Canada, or Tunguska in Siberia. So does the South Pole shift to South America? This pole shift would generate earthquakes, landmass shifts, volcanic eruptions, and presumably California slides into the sea. There are three sources for this disturbing concept. Number one, ancient prophecy, including the Bible and American Indian, the Hopi legend. Number two, the scientists, including Albert Einstein, Immanuel Velikovsky, Peter Warloff, a British physicist, and Charles Hapgood in the Earth's shifting crust. Three, physics, contemporary, such as Edgar Cayce. Our good friend John White wrote a book some years ago. Now, in his third printing entitled The Pole Shift, which predicted a catastrophe for Earth in a few decades. Now, the evidence in pole shift comes from geology, astronomy, archaeology, and physics, but is capable of variant interpretations. Here's how John White assessed the evidence some years ago. He does have an address that's provided if you want to order that book. So it includes frozen mammoths in Siberia and Alaska, including the famous Berezovka mammoth, which was found with undigested summer vegetables in its mouth and stomach. The evidence also includes coral reefs in Alaska, fossils of jellyfish and raindrops, well-preserved trees, thousands of years old, frozen under a treeless Arctic tundra, some with fruit and leaves still on them, glacial striation in rocks near the equator that show a movement towards the poles, suddenly reversals of the Earth's magnetic field. Animal extinction correlated with ice ages and ancient maps of Antarctica, showing it free of ice, which were drawn hundreds of years before it was officially discovered in 1820. Now, this was John White's position about 10 years ago and is reflected in pole shift. His current position is different, and we'll get to that later. But two academic authors, Professors Charles H. Hapgood and J. H. Campbell, wrote a similar book called The Earth's Shifting Crust. Now, their argument tied together pole shift, the ice ages, and continental drift to make a case for potential disaster. The Earth is a giant rotating sphere with a velocity of 1,000 miles per hour at the equator and 0 miles per hour at the poles. The land and ice masses at the poles are not in balance. The lopsided mass at Antarctica at 96 degrees east and 12 degrees off-center of Earth rotation is pulling the north axial pole towards Tunguska in Siberia and south axial pole into South America. But the coming pole shift into balance will stop the Earth's rotation and force rotation to reverse. The sun will then rise in the west and the magnetic poles reverse. Well, this is bad enough, but another writer has an even more startling view. Physicist Dr. Richard Leffers Clark of San Diego has explored the possibility that a secret elite could shift the poles deliberately at some pre-planned time to solve earthly problems. So here's Dr. Clark's argument almost in its entirety as he sent it to me. Over the last several years, there have been numerous books and articles written about pole shift and the Earth's magnetic field reversal. The best research in these subjects proves that both events do happen to the planet at various intervals of time. Here I am going to depart from the text, for I have already commented on the subject matter partially included within the document, so I'll move on to the closing comments. All is not lost, a re-examination of the evidence. Well, since the original publications in the 1970s, controversy and counter-evidence has flowed and the overall conclusion can be modified. For example, without belaboring the other dozens of evidential disputes, the idea that ancient maps showed no ice in Antarctica can be explained on grounds of the way maps were designed and drawn in the earlier times, and so on. As John White wrote recently in Is a disastrous pole shift inevitable? In Venture Inward, October 1989. But in summary, from the scientific perspective, the question of previous pole shifts appears resolved in favor of a non-capsizing planet with stationary poles. And Velikovsky's case has been demolished. The evidence he offers for recent catastrophes can be explained by non-catastrophic processes. So with these refutations of major categories of evidence for the pole shift concept, the case for pole shifts is now virtually non-existent. Now, this is a brave conclusion for John White. Sales of his best-selling pole shift will probably plummet now that he has demolished his own earlier argument. However, that is what true science is all about: integrity and honesty. Finally, we are still concerned about one aspect. There is no question that the landmass at the poles is off-center. Theoretically, this must have some effect on axial rotation at some point, in some manner. So be it. Another thought or two before we leave: scientific evidence of former worlds. Besides the rediscovery of that which was known as Noah's Ark, which in and of itself should be enough physical evidence of the Great Flood, and the fact that there have been catastrophic earth changes in the past that have swept away old worlds and brought in new ones. Is there any other scientific evidence to support the natives' legend of 3 previous worlds? Oh yes, indeed. Your own scientific journals and publications, such as the International Geophysical Year, abound with information that points conclusively to the existence of previous worlds and to their destruction. For example, scientific data has shown that the world's oceans rose dramatically in excess of 200 feet 7,000 years ago, the time of Noah's flood. Now, data includes shells, marine fossils, and salt deposits from seawater that have been found atop the highest mountains in the world, the Himalayas, as well as other mountain chains right in your good old US of A. What about Utah, which proves at least 2 evolutions, one with ancient land fossils and the other with ocean and sea fossils? How quaint. Further, archaeologists have unearthed massive grave sites where the fossilized remains of literally millions of animals, both tropical and arctic, including bison, mastodon, horses, etc., have all been deposited in one place along with huge uprooted trees. Examples of this phenomena can be seen in the United Kingdom, Europe, Dinosaur National Park, parts of Texas, and stream valleys near Fairbanks, Alaska. The fossilized remains of whales have also been found several hundreds of feet above sea level, hundreds of miles inland in several parts of North America. Plus, archaeologists and geologists state that they have uncovered what seems to be evidence of successive cycles of human civilization in excavations in the Middle East. Digging deep in the earth, the excavations reveal civilization after civilization, each with a layer of sedimentary rock and mud, sometimes several feet thick, separating it from the previous one, as if each old civilization was buried before the new one could emerge. Now, the powerful Earth-watching radar carried aboard your little space shuttle Columbia in the very early 1980s added further evidence for the above statements. For a little research information for you confirmationists in Science magazine, published in the early 80s, the results of a study conducted by scientists from the United States Geological Survey in Flagstaff, Arizona, the University of Arizona, the Egyptian Geological Survey and Mining Authority in Cairo, and the Jet Propulsion Lab of Pasadena, California, were made available to the public. The report states, in part, that the super powerful radar revealed ancient buried riverbeds in what is now the driest part of Egypt, and evidence points to human occupation of the area dating back 200,000 years or more. The discovery of the buried stream channels, the riverbeds with broad flood plains, etc., was a surprise to the scientists, as the area is today one of the most barren, featureless expanses of desert land on Earth. And its discovery may help explain some of the legends about the area, which was supposed to have been the breadbasket of the world at one time. So how could Earth be changed so dramatically, so quickly? Many scientists believe that a major shift in the poles could account for the drastic changes. Good deduction. One explanation was put forth that the Earth could have been struck by a giant asteroid or meteorite, perhaps like the one in Nebuchadnezzar's dream that hit the political beast on its feet, causing it to crash to pieces. Not a bad deduction. How about wormwood? This, they deducted, might have shifted Earth on its axis and caused dramatic floods and other upheavals in nature. Evidence for pole shifting as a result of some giant asteroid colliding with the Earth abounds that has given scientists new theories on how the Earth's present continents were formed, as well as explanations for the sudden demise of the dinosaurs on Earth. Still, someone told Noah to build that confounded elusive ark. Earth deductions. I will herein give you a smattering of deductions which are partially concluded by Earth scientists, and see if any ring into the realm of possibility. At any rate, you will find them interesting at the least. Klaus J. Schultz of Washington University stated that he has found evidence of a 1,700-mile-wide crater beneath the forests and lakes of central Canada. And he and other scientists believe that the crater was formed when a giant asteroid the size of the state of Delaware smashed into the Earth eons ago, setting off volcanic activity, earthquakes, and other natural upheavals which helped to form the continents of today. Other scientific researchers have found an underground layer of exotic metal, iridium, in eastern Montana. The metal is extremely rare in the Earth's crust, but is found in abundance in matter from outer space. The discovery of the underground layer of iridium supports the theory that a giant meteorite or asteroid with an estimated diameter of 2 miles and the weight of at least 50 billion tons hit the Earth some 65 million years ago, thus transporting large amounts of rare metal to the Earth. The deposits of the metal have been found in layers of the Earth's crust that date back to the time of the dinosaur extinctions. Let's see now, Montana? Could this be the stuff of a 2-mile size crystals? Could the projected crystals form lovely little valleys and deserts as they plow in? Just a thought or two to see if you are awake. The discovery of underground iridium supports the theory that a giant meteorite or asteroid or something with an estimated diameter of the 2 miles and the weight of at least 50 billion tons. Yeah, a good crystal with metal firebursts would weigh about that much. Oh well, let us move onward. Alongside the iridium deposits are vast deposits of now extinct one-cell marine animals and 1 to 10 billion tons of tekstites. Tekstites are formed by cooled droplets of rock that were melted by the shock of a great and forceful impact of some sort or another. Now, the impact could have sent up a cloud of dust that could affect temperatures dramatically and block out sunlight for months, thereby killing off the vast amounts of vegetation, and the dinosaurs needed that in order to survive. The impact also could have caused the Earth to shift on its axis, and proof of this theory abounds too. For example, in the frozen lands of northeastern Siberia, as well as in other areas encircling the North Pole, quick frozen or freeze-dried bodies of mammoth herds have been found along with vast amounts of vegetation. Much of it of a tropical variety. Now, some of the mammoths actually had buttercups still in their mouths. Fossil trees and coral reefs similar to those found in warm tropical areas today have been found only 8 degrees 15 from the cold North Pole. And in one of the ancient tombs of Egypt, the constellations and zodiac of the night sky are shown completely reversed. Another very quaint happenstance. Perhaps those Egyptians were dyslexic or utilized ancient mirror tricks. This does, however, correlate to ancient writings of various cultures and religions, the state that the sun used to rise in the west and set in the east. Even more quaint a concept. Even today, the earth is being continually pounded by meteorites, although most are too small to cause such damage. However, scientists are concerned about the possibility of another giant meteorite or asteroid striking the earth. In the past, the vast majority of these meteorites were burned up in the Earth's atmosphere before hitting the earth. But because of the depletion of the ozone layer due to man's pollutions, more and more are smashing into the Earth's surface. An example of this was seen near Gallup, New Mexico, where authorities reported the discovery of a massive smoldering crater believed to have been produced by a giant meteorite. Reports indicated that a big green ball of fire, followed by at least 6 sonic booms, rocked a 200-mile wide area. Scientists believe that the booms, etc., were caused by a meteor shower. Concerned that a giant asteroid or meteorite may one day strike the earth again as it did ages ago, are so great that in 1968 NASA set up an asteroid watch called Project Icarus. And if you believe that, dear little brothers, you are worse off than I expected. By the way, about that ozone hole, it's time you quit kicking that old dead horse. They have sold you. They are fighting the ozone hole because, dear friends, hold on to your seats. The new communications and higher consciousness is flowing through the ozone windows, and they are terrified that they will not get their safety equipment workable before you sleeping babies wake up. And will it work? It's strictly up to you. Dear Edgar Cayce stated that mankind has reached its present technological and spiritual level many times, only to ignore the teachings of God, thereby failing to enter the age of spiritual purity and committing mass suicide through warfare, ecological disaster resulting from man-made pollutions, etc. Many times has the evolution of the earth reached a stage of development as it has today, and then it sank again, to rise again in the next development. Excellent food for the thinking mind. Now, Cayce points to the island continents of Atlantis, in the Atlantic, and Lemuria in the Pacific as examples of advanced civilizations that were destroyed because they had become corrupt. The Atlanteans in particular stand out as a people who had evolved great mental and intuitive abilities, as well as being very technologically advanced. Cayce said that they understood spiritual laws better than you do today and worshiped the one God, Aton. But the society was destroyed from within by those who served the dark forces, the forces of ego, repression, anger, hatred, and division. Any of this sound familiar? The destruction of Atlantis was foretold by its prophets well in advance of the actual event, so there was ample time to prepare for it. Thus, the important documents and records of Atlantis were gathered together and put in the Hall of Records in Egypt. The Atlanteans knew that the very existence of their culture and civilization would be unknown for centuries. but they also knew that eventually, in this age, their records would be rediscovered and all things would be revealed. Just, dear ones, as these records shall someday, eons from this time, be discovered, and your legacy to history will complete its cycle. Aho. Indeed, recent discoveries in the Atlantic supports claims of the previous existence of the continent of Atlantis. The reader herewith must know that a portion of the submerged Atlantean continent has resurfaced near the Bimini Islands, and underwater divers have brought back pictures of a massive symmetrical seawall that was obviously made by human hands and probably was one of the walls surrounding the ancient continent or parts thereof. And there are several portions of the original lands of Lemuria which still stand unsubmerged today, and those will remain above water level in the new configuration. Survivors from Lemuria and Atlantis were scattered east and west depending on the fortunes of the winds and the seas. At least this is what historians wish to believe, and it makes for a good fable. In fact, I should tell you the fable so that you can enjoy what happens when facts are absent. Now, many of these survivors are said to have gone to Egypt, conquering the native peoples there and ushering in the golden age of Egypt, where the arts and the sciences, philosophy and religion, and even the beautiful architecture, such as the Sphinx, were greatly emphasized. The commingling of the Atlanteans caused a quantum leap in the evolution of the Egyptians, both materially and spiritually. Now, other survivors from the two continents, which, by the way, were some thousands of years separated, are said to have landed on the shores of the Americas. This theory is supported by the American Indians, whose legends say that they are the descendants of the survivors of the now lost Red Land upon, which was broken up, destroyed, and covered over by the waters of the great seas. It is also reported that those Atlanteans, who were the most spiritual and therefore the most highly evolved, transformed themselves into dolphins to escape the cataclysm that engulfed Atlantis. This would help to explain why the ancient Greeks considered it murder to kill a dolphin, and also helps to explain why the Hindu scriptures state that dolphins are so spiritual and highly evolved. Well, Hatton is not here to confirm or deny legends or counter myths. Always remember, however, that if you have a handed-down legend, there is usually basis for the story to have begun, and it is often not the whole truth and nothing but the truth. However, it is simply a means of connecting what is evidence in manifested form before you and allowing some measure of conceptual acceptance of a circumstance. Edgar Casey, the experience of Atlantis then is a lesson to this generation in the evolution of the earth and man's capacity for making a total shambles of his sojourn here. For not only has this happened to the Atlantean civilization, it has happened to many before it. Now you remember a single deluge only, states the Egyptian priest in Plato's Republic. There have been, and will be again, many destructions of mankind arising out of many causes. You remember a single deluge only, but there were many previous ones. Dharma. It has been most long session, so please let us leave this now. I am most grateful for this opportunity of getting on with something you all have been waiting. Yes, I think most surely that this portion should be placed within the current journal. And thank you for your attention and service. I am now moving to standby and clearing circuits. I am Hatton.